So tonight, Robert and I are in downtown Durham, and we are going on our Valentine's date. A couple weeks early, but it's still a Valentine's date. And we are going to be going to Museum Hotel, which is over there. It's that really tall building, and they have really interesting art displays, and they change it out every 6 months or so. So we're gonna go see their new art exhibit. And then after that, we have a 7:45 reservation at M Sushi. We've been wanting to go to M Sushi for years, and we haven't been able to go. So we are super excited to eat some really delicious food.
So for many years, Museum Hotel had one exhibit called Future is Female, but now that COVID's over, they finally have a new exhibit. It's called This We Believe. It's an exploration of religion in our modern times. 21C Museum Hotel's This We Believe exhibit was definitely a change of pace from the prior exhibit, The Future is Female. Some notable pieces included Robin Kidd's I Believe in the Promised Land, which boldly featured the words, "This is not home for us," with a backdrop of imagery from neo-fascist movements. Melissa Vandenberg's Proper Patriot depicted the American flag using burning sparklers to illustrate the fleeting nature of power and the contested definitions of patriotism, while also starting a conversation about flag burning. Zach Ove's Umbilical Progenitor, which depicted an African astronaut, was the centerpiece of the exhibit and visually stunning, even though its interpretation was unclear. There were also an interesting statue of Ganesh, merged with a young child, and an interesting statue of a humanoid fairy carrying a mango. However, unlike the previous exhibit, this exhibit felt much more limited in scope since it had fewer pieces of art in it and was less coherent in theme. Further, the low points, which I would define as edgelord criticisms of religion such as a menorah made out of guns and a mosque made out of bullets, were much worse than any of the previous exhibits that we have seen there. However, it is still worth a visit, and I'm glad that we took the time to see it.
So our reservation's in about 45 minutes to an hour, and we are just around downtown. Seeing the exhibit at Museum Hotel, it didn't take that long, so we're just chilling, walking around downtown Durham, enjoying how beautifully warm it is outside tonight. It's like a perfect night for this date. Working up an appetite with all that walking. So we are at M Sushi, ready to eat some very, very delicious food.
Well, we had a wonderful time at M Sushi, and now that we're home, I want to give a review of the restaurant. So I went to M Sushi with a plan to eat their nigiri omakase, omakase meaning chef's selection in Japanese. Linnea didn't plan on eating a full meal, so she decided she was going to do the specialty rolls and the classic rolls. So to give a brief overview of the M Sushi dining experience, when you come in, it's a very crowded kind of environment. You're in the basement of an office building or a hotel or something, and they tried to maximize the space by making it primarily bar seating along this long strip of like African bubinga wood. You're seated at the bar with the chefs preparing everything in front of you. So I went with the nigiri omakase because it made sense that if we were going to be in front of the chefs, I would like to see how everything was prepared, and I have some thoughts on that. Overall, the fish quality was very good. There were a wide variety of fish prepared in a lot of different ways. It started off with a very, very light, non-fishy whitefish with a sweet and sour yuzu sauce, and we slowly built up over time to stronger and stronger flavors, going through things such as knife jaw, amberjack, skipjack, yellowtail, otoro and chutoro tuna, leading up to the most potent dishes of the night, which were this lightly torched salmon with scallions, and also to anago, which is saltwater eel. So just speaking from experience, I really enjoyed everything. I think the most interesting things were that initial piece of very citrusy fish at the beginning. The chutoro and the otoro, the tuna were fantastic, and so was the salmon. Even the fish in the intermediate steps where they got increasingly fishy, like the mackerel, Spanish mackerel, were still pretty good and not overpowering because they were very well balanced with things such as wasabi, soy sauce, sake, and mint. But the anago was not great. I've had unagi, which is freshwater eel that's been smoked and barbecued, and that's delicious. But anago just had a very unpleasant, like, texture and salty taste to it that I was not a fan of. I kind of hope to get more out of the experience. At roughly $60, the nigiri omakase is kind of in a weird place. So at takeout sushi places, I've had comparable amounts of sushi in terms of variety, but with like substantially larger pieces of sashimi, not sashimi, but substantially larger slices of fish on top of the rice. It felt like everything was very bite-sized, or maybe even slightly smaller than bite-sized, and it felt like the fish were very thin. And the reality is at $60, that's kind of on the cheap end for an omakase. Regularly, they could go from anywhere from like $80 to $120. They actually do have a grand omakase at M Sushi that requires everyone at your table to order it, and it's $130. But I think a lot of that like price comes from the fact that they include 6 ounces of Wagyu beef, which costs about $40 to $50 to get that amount of Wagyu even at like a grocery store. So while I enjoyed the variety of fish and the quality of fish, I thought portion sizes were kind of small, and it was also like really chaotic, so I didn't really feel like it was like a curated experience. So to talk about it, the fish were served one piece at a time, as you would expect. However, the the restaurant was extremely crowded and extremely busy, so between each piece of sushi, the chef not only was preparing nigiri for other people, but he was making very complex specialty rolls for everyone in the restaurant. So it would be a very small piece of nigiri sushi, followed by 5 to 10 minute wait, and for 13 pieces, it turned this whole experience into like a 2-hour event. It felt like it was very slow and hard to fill up because of just how long it took to get all the sushi. So it's kind of hard to justify that for the small portion sizes and the lack of like direct interaction with the chef. And he was very nice and he gave like brief explanations of things. It was almost impossible to hear him over the noise in the restaurant. It didn't really give me the sense that it was worth the jump up from like $30 nigiri at a cheaper establishment to like, you know, the next level of nigiri sushi. So it was a little bit disappointing, but it was still a good experience that I'm glad I've done. Probably won't do again. Linnea had a rainbow roll, and it was arguably the best rainbow roll she's ever seen, and I'll let her explain it.
So I started with the rainbow roll. It was definitely the best rainbow roll I've ever had. It was visually beautiful, and it was full of fish that just tasted so fresh and buttery and amazing. And it was not, none of the flavors were overpowering. I loved it.
The thing that surprised us most about M Sushi was actually the classic rolls. These were incredibly surprising because when we asked the waitress for suggestions, she didn't even mention the classic rolls. And the reality is, those classic rolls are all priced from $6 to $12, which for a classic roll, that's like, okay, cool. That's like grocery store prices. However, what they don't tell you is that the quality of the fish and the portion sizes on the classic rolls is massive. 2 classic rolls could fill somebody up easily, and they looked like they had the same level of quality going into them as went into the nigiri sushi. So we would highly recommend like a salmon avocado roll or a tuna roll as an alternative to paying for the specialty rolls or one of the omakases at the restaurant. So if you're just going for a classic sushi experience, skip the specialty rolls, skip the omakases and kind of guided, curated experiences, and just go for very simple classic sushi rolls. Overall, it was a good vibe. It was active. It was a well-decorated restaurant. The interactions with staff, you know, everyone seemed friendly, but they also seemed extremely stressed. And for mid-tier to high-price sushi experience, I kind of was hoping to get more interaction with the sushi chef. The fish quality was extremely high, and so was the variety. Things were prepared in really interesting ways, but the portion sizes on the nigiri seemed kind of small. The specialty rolls were huge and fantastic and complex, and they weren't like just slather everything in condiments so you can't even taste the low-quality fish that we've thrown into our alleged like tuna rolls you see at these like cheap all-you-can-eat sushi places. They were truly high-quality ingredients with good portion sizes. But the real value of M Sushi comes from its classic sushi menu. Linnea and I fully intend on going back and exploiting that menu for takeout sushi if we ever get takeout sushi. Anyways, we had a wonderful night, and we highly recommend that you try out M Sushi just for the experience, and check out the Art Museum Hotel for their new exhibit. Thanks, have a good night, like and subscribe.